Hey, ADG. I don't know if you can hear me, but welcome. Welcome, welcome. And welcome everybody, anybody who's here. Hopefully you guys can hear me. And hopefully oh, awesome. Excellent. Great, 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 great. It's been a while since it's been like a month since I've done a video, and it's been a while since I've done one of these Sunday live streams. My Dolmenwood campaign is on hiatus for Christmas, so I'm not really going to be doing any of that today for the next few weeks. I'm all fully prepped for it. I just need to actually run the sessions. So no more prep that needs to be done there. So I thought today I would do work on this new setting sandbox thing that I'm working on. Eventually, the goal is to make it the seat of a mega dungeon, but I want to build out the whole setting so that the mega dungeon has context, rather than just put the mega dungeon in and just kind of like, hey, here's a bunch of random stuff about it. I started that way, and I started drawing out like zones for the dungeon, and I started putting things together, and then it sort of, I don't know, I realized, well, I can't really put this in here. It wouldn't make sense, so I'll make another dungeon for it. And then I was like, wait a minute, why am I putting it in another dungeon? I should just start building the region out, and then, yeah, that's how it goes. Hey, Crow, glad you can make it as well. Yeah, exactly, ADG. Start just on the mega dungeon of your own next year. Yeah, I mean, I'd be super excited for a Soul Blight mega dungeon. That would be awesome. I can just imagine the possibilities of the Blight. That'd be great. But any kind of dungeon you release would be awesome too. Soul Blight or not. So, I think I'll show you guys a little bit of the work I've been doing. Now, you guys are going to have to tell me, oh, Bitter Cradle, that sounds great. ADG, that sounds hardcore. I love that. The Bitter Cradle. Man, that's evocative. All right, show you guys a little bit of the maps I've been doing. Now, I will admit, these are a little strange. I went with a very weird color palette, and I'm not set on it finally, but I like it. But it doesn't, I don't know if it fits everything else. Anyway, it's very, very preliminary stages. Anyway, as you guys can see, it's a very weird, almost like dark aesthetic. I used the stuff from Hexographer to make these really weird colored tiles. It's black background, which is a weird map for me. I usually don't do it, but I was so put off by the bright white. I don't know. So I was doing a black and white map, and it just didn't strike me. So I kind of inverted it, and then I went with it, and I sort of like it. And as I added on more and more to it, I started to like it more. So this is kind of like the base terrain, and then it's just the different regions of the zone. And then as you start adding things together, it starts to come together more and more and more. Yeah, Ultima, exactly, ADG. That's kind of what was kind of coming to me there, was this sort of Ultima vibe. Valorant is just a total placeholder. It's nothing yet there. But as you build it out, you can see that it kind of gets more and more and more. And here's the different regions and the names for them. And then eventually I put them all together. And here's like a color-coded, all the different zones in the world. And I think it's helpful to me to have this sort of like color-coded thing. I can just see how big the regions are and how, like, these are all 3-mile hexes. So this is not a huge region, huge zone. But I just kind of, I don't know, this is a great way for me to put things together at the very start. Have this sort of different zones. I'm thinking 2 to 4 locations in each of these zones. Some of them are just one, like the Scales and Flint, Isle of the Archons, Sinner's Isle, and then all the different locations on the final island back over here are all just one location zones. The same with the Shriek, actually, in Ordeal's End. So all basically the small ones are all one location. But then as you get bigger, so the Pilgrim's Way, for example, to run off the White Road, they have a couple, 2 to 3. And the idea here, of course, to the world is that this is the quote-unquote Holy Land. So there was I won't go into too much detail there, but basically I haven't figured out the whole plot yet, the background. But there was this goddess, or kind of like demigod, who had lots and lots and lots of power. And she created, or this sort of kingdom. It wouldn't be a kingdom, I guess, but a place that she ruled. You do not see any holes yet. I'm not sure what you mean there, but I'll, but anyway, oh, good. Awesome. Yum, yum. I'm glad it's looking cool. So this is just the color coded one, as I said. So anyway, demigoddess who rules over this region, and not even a demigoddess, right? It's just like a, oh, gotcha. A holy land. Gotcha. Um, but she didn't actually. So the legend is that she was divine and all this stuff, but in reality, she's just like this really, 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 really powerful entity. And I don't know exactly what she was. I don't even think she demanded worship exactly. I think she just had like this massive amount of power and ruled as sort of like a sort of a magical tyrant or something like that. Maybe half benevolent, maybe not. Regardless, the story is that there was this demigoddess who was sent by the divine, but in reality, she's just a really powerful. I don't think magic user. I think she really is like an extraplanar entity of some kind. Anyway, she's betrayed by her own followers, the 9 that she has trained, and they basically trap her and they siphon her power for themselves. And so that's the whole point. And so this is drawn heavily from Silksong, that the Hollow Knight Silksong which I've drawn. I took a lot of the base idea from that, although there's some pretty big differences already that I've just laid out. But they're siphoning her power. And this religion that's been constructed is basically an elaborate way of keeping her down. So all of these prayers that have been taught, all of these rituals that these faithful are doing, are all basically contributions to the spell that's keeping her locked away. So they all think they're worshiping her, all these followers. They all think they'll worship, but really what they're doing is they're keeping her trapped. And yet, she's this incredibly powerful entity. And so her followers basically siphon her power, but it drives them all insane. And so they're all, ages ago, they all completely lost it. And they each had their own vibe, right? And that's how I'm going to make this different region into like different zones, right? So there's different rulers who each kind of made their domain to their preference, right? Their little region to their preference. So there's like the forest theme, right? And there's the necromancer guy who wants to raise the dead and all this stuff. So anyway, they go into their different zones. They're different parts, and they rule together sort of in their own way, but they keep it all with this veneer of holy worship. And so there's the city of the throne, and it basically calls in pilgrims. And then they use those pilgrims in their own way. So each of them, some of them corrupt them, some of them kill them and use them, some of them keep them in this sort of like, enchanted, whatever it is. The pilgrims are basically fodder, and they're brought in this sort of web. So anyway, I think it's really cool. It's really creepy. But that was all ages ago, right? Ages ago. And everything has fallen apart since then because all these archons, which I'm calling them the archons, the rulers, the 9 who followed, quote unquote, this demigoddess, they've all gone insane and either died or been destroyed or shriveled away or become other things. And so everything's fallen apart, this whole religion, but it still calls pilgrims because her power is such, and the religion was so powerful, that it spread through the world. And so there's sort of this almost maybe magical or maybe instinctual draw for certain kinds of people to come here. And so there still is a steady stream of pilgrims here, but now the land is basically entirely fallen and corrupted. And there are some parts of it where the religion, quote unquote, still functions, and some parts of it where it's just like an instinctual behavior by a handful of basically mindless zombies. It's all fallen apart. So it has this, pilgrims still show up and people still go to the City of Throne, and some of them even live there, but they're overwhelmed by whatever magic is there, and they're killed or they're devoured in either body or soul, basically, in various ways. And so I think it's a perfect place for adventurers, because what you have is a place that's technically all fallen apart. So there's no like king to stop them, right? So it's not like you don't have to like have a political intrigue in order to maneuver through this city and civilized area. So it's like you kind of get the best of both worlds, in my opinion. You get cities and you have like settlements and things like that where players can adventure, but they're like either half abandoned or completely overrun or completely destroyed. Even the big city. And I've already put out kind of a city map, but it's more of a point crawl through the city. And that'll be kind of like a quasi dungeon. So I'm basically just running the big city as a big dungeon, open air point crawl dungeon. And so that's not the mega dungeon. The mega dungeon, of course, is the Golden Palace. It's where she's sleeping. That's the big dungeon at the end at the island. But the idea is slowly, basically, the players are going to start in Ordeal. Ordeal's end. That's where the Westmarches or the Sandbox begins. That's the home base. That's the safe place. Ordeal is the last safe place really here, or at least one of the last safe places. And then they just start exploring, right? So you go into the Flint, the Pilgrim's Way, the Sodden Fields, down into the Shriek. And I'll go back to the Yeah, here, this is another map. I'll use this one. So you start off here in Ordeal's End. Let's see. I'll go down here. So very Black Company too. Yeah. Black Company is heavy influence here, I'm sure. Yeah. Sunday morning with Uncle RedMage. Yeah, sure. And hey, William. Welcome. Let's see. Love this concept. Awesome, Crow. Glad. That's really cool. I'm glad you like it. It's cool. I thought it was fun. And then at ADG, let's see it. The daughter of the stars ascended upon the earth, her fire core mantled in immortal guise. She wore kingship upon her brow like the stag doth its antlers. That's great. I love that. Dude, I want to steal that. Ordeal's End. In fact, I'm going to copy that if that's okay, because I think that's really cool. Unless you're going to use that for one of your own, because I don't want to steal anything that's one of your own. But I like stealing stuff. I'm going to put a quote marks around that just to ADG, because that's pretty cool. All right, saved it there. Okay. So let me give you guys a quick overview of this world, and then I'm basically going to be going through each of these different locations, not these locations, these locations, and I'll be coming up with like descriptions of each of them, just very brief ones. That way I can expand on them later. But I came up with names. It's always what I do first when I want to come up with a dungeon or something. I just come up with the name first, and then I do the rest. All right. So anyway, Ordeal's End is where the players start. That's where Ordeal is, and I want it to be relatively safe. Certainly the home base is safe. It's kind of a ruin. I put that in one of the posts already. But there's going to be like at least one or two locations there that players can go and adventure, so rumors right away. One of them is the Cave of the Prayer Thief, which I like the idea of this thing that feasts upon pilgrims, and it's known to the people of Ordeal's End, or Ordeal. It's called the Prayer Thief. I don't know what kind of creature it is, but essentially it steals your prayers, right? And either that's because it eats you and devours you, or maybe it leaves you as a husk and it drains your faith or drains your soul or something. I don't know what it is. Some sort of wraith or wight, or maybe it's just a big beastie that eats people. Anyway, I liked the title Prayer Thief. I thought it was kind of cool. So anyway, Cave of the Prayer Thief is going to be one of the early locations. I know that. Now down in the Shriek is sort of this is all bog down here. The sodden fields, the Shriek, and the runoff. These are all part of the bog. A big coastal swampy area. And the Shriek is the one's closest to Ordeal's End, and I think it's called that. I'm not sure exactly why it's called that. Maybe there's some horrible creature out there that gives like a cry, makes it sound horrific. That's what I imagine, actually. But that's what's down there. And there's like a sort of sunken sanctum. I think I call it the Drowned Sanctum down there. There's an old temple. It's nearby, so it's going to be one of the early dungeons the players can hear about. And it'll be down there. So it's a couple, 2-level dungeon or something like that. Very short, but big enough for a few expeditions. Flint, I'm not sure exactly why I called it that. I honestly think I did it because I needed something to fit into this little box, and I just wanted to call it something like that. So I said Flint, and there's a tower there, Flint's Tower. And I think maybe he's like an adventurer or like a bandit, or someone was there, and over time that just kind of took his name. I don't know exactly what that dungeon is either. Then once you get past this little area, Ordeal's End, Flint, and the Shriek, you start to get into the actual world. And the first place that pilgrims go is the Scales. Yeah, Aramile, 12. Yeah, I'm still running Dolmenwood. We're on a hiatus for Christmas right now, and I'm not preparing anything today because I'm already all prepared for our next few sessions. So that's why I'm not doing our Sunday Dolmenwood adventure or prep. But yeah, I'm still running it, having a blast. They're running into a abandoned Droon village that's been overrun by spiders, and one of the Droon is still there, and he is a mutated spider guy controlling the rest of the spiders. They don't know that yet, but they just think it's an overrun, spider-infested old Droon village. Super fun. Anyway, so the Scales is where most pilgrims go first. They come from Ordeal's End, and they head down into the Scales, and the Scales is where you're judged. Now, there's really, technically, everyone thinks there are 2 judgments, but there are actually 3. You can either be judged as still needing penance, which is one of the paths along the Pilgrim's Way. And the other is you can be found to be pure. And if you're found to be pure, you go down the White Road. So if you go back to this road here, this one here, you'll see that you have this. You go to the judgment seat, and you're judged. And if you're found to be someone who still needs to submit, then you head up the path of submission. You head up through here, which eventually leads to, actually, I'll do the complete map. That way you guys have both the titles. There we go. You head up Pilgrim's Way through the Shrine of Submission. And then you go up through the Gilded Waste, which is not what it used to be called. But it's called the Gilded Waste because at this point, from the Shrine of Submission to the Shrine of Emptiness, along this road, pilgrims had to cast off everything that they still owned. So if you were rich, if you still had stuff when you came into the Holy Land, this is where you cast it off. And of course, most of them would pick it up later and use it. But in the time since, no one's picked it up anymore, right? It's just there. So there's going to be these piles of corroded metal, and maybe there's some treasure mixed in, but there's going to be like, things that are living out there. And anyway, so the Gilded Waste is where people cast off. So along the sides of the road are just like possessions, cast off possessions, mounds of them, piles of them. That's the idea. So anyway, you go up the Shrine of Submission, past the Gilded Waste, then you would enter the Shrine of Emptiness. And if you've arrived there and you're completely empty, you're completely, all free of all earthly possessions, and you're ready to enter the Holy City of Throne. And you go right through and you're in Throne. Okay. Well, if you're in the White Road, then you pass through Respite, and then you pass through the White Road, and then you come to Last Shrine, and then you get to head through the Holy City. Now, the Fields of Toil and the Fading is a new name for it. Some of the regions are named colloquially, some of them are named what they would have been called officially, and some of them are called kind of like what they are they're more descriptive. So there's no like one rule there. Oh, awesome. Yeah, I mean, that's great. I'm glad. Feel free to do so. So anyway, so you go to the scales, you get judged, and you go up one way or the other. Now, of course, the players aren't here to be judged, right? If they're pilgrims, then they're not adventurers. And so it's going to be like background. And I don't want this to be, this is a Westmarches or a Sandbox, right? Or you can run it one way or the other. I'm just kind of creating a region. I don't want it to be heavily story-based, right? This is all environmental. So one of the things I'm going to be putting into the book is like a kind of maybe like a page or two, maybe a page, just a page of like brief bullet points of like, here's how to make this place, here's how to use the environmental storytelling to the best effect you can, rather than making it a plot-based adventure. You don't want the villains to be going around. You can run it however you want, obviously, but if you want to run it as sort of the way I'm imagining it, then this is all environmental. So the Seat of Judgment is now completely overrun, right? It's like whatever monsters are there, but that's what its function was. And so there are going to be signs of that, right, in the walls, in the murals, and the people who talk about it, in the relics that you might find there, and the dead bodies that you might find there. It's all going to kind of build up on this idea that this is where the pilgrims went first. Anyway, once so I said that there were 3 possible judgments. Those are the 2. The third is that you get sent out all the way up to the Halls of Penance. That's if you're real bad, or if you're going to be basically a threat, right? If you're a threat to the overall functioning of Throne, if they think that you're not going to play ball, if they think that you're faithful, but they think, oh well, you're a tricky one, well then we're going to send you out to the Halls of Penance, and which is basically just a prison. You're lost out there. So this red is this red sandstorm waste. You head out through the sealed gate. You're led on a little path out there. It's basically like the gulag, but instead of being freezing, it's like this sort of biting red sandstorm that's just running everywhere, and you finally get out to the middle of it with the Halls of Penance, and it's just a prison that you're not coming out of, you're not getting out of. And then if you're really bad, like really, really bad, you get sent to Lost Hope, which is on the very edge. And basically the idea here is that this sandstorm extends out for maybe 100 miles or however far in every other direction, west and north. So you get sent to Lost Hope. It's like the very edge of just a wasteland. It's like the edge of the Witcher map, right? When it says, hey, you go any further and you'll get lost, or something like that out here. The Lost Hope is where the bad ones are. Or quote-unquote bad. Bad as they would have been considered by the City of Throne, by the Archons. Maybe some of them are quite good. Maybe some of them are actually awful. Worse even than the Archons. Who knows? But this is the prison area. You get sent if you're really bad. Okay. So that's how you go to the scales. So that's the first kind of region here. You go up into the Pilgrim's Way. You'll see a few things. You'll see Respite, which is a ruined town. And it's going to be the first, I think for the players, it's going to be the first indication that something is really, really bad here. Obviously things are going to be bad in, Flint Tower and the Seat of Judgment and stuff like that. But if you get to Respite, it's like, this is supposed to be a city or a town. It's supposed to be civilization. And it's going to be probably where they first run into like mindless followers, haunted people, possessed people, whatever it might be, who just attack kind of mindlessly. But they're kind of weak, maybe, and pathetic, zombie-esque, basically. And there are going to be some other things controlling. So Respite will be like the first time the players go, oh, wow, this is a really deep problem. And I don't think there's a way to save the people here. I was thinking about this, and maybe, of course, DMs can run it however they want. But I don't know if I'm going to be giving like, oh, you kill this creature and the people are all freed. And Respite becomes a town that you can now reside in and buy stuff. I'm not going to do it that way. It's a dungeon. It's an open air dungeon with a town. Maybe there's a dungeon below it, or like a temple that needs to be cleaned out, but it's lost. Anyway, Respite. And then you have the Shrine of Submission, which is again up here. Then you have the Scarred, who I don't know exactly who they are yet. We'll figure it out. The Scarred, I just like that they're a tribe. They live out here on the Pilgrim's Way. They're not in the city. They're across the river from the city. They're careful, maybe. I don't know. The Scarred, anyway. And then over here I have the God Slayers. And the idea there is that this is like an order of crusaders who saw this whole thing for what it is, which is a perversion of faith. It's like an evil trap. And so the God Slayers came here to destroy it. But of course, the madness that infects the whole place infected them too. And so they're like these mindless paladins, not just like lawful evil paladins who kill anything that they can get their hands on. They're dedicated to the destruction of this place, but their whole quest has been perverted and destroyed. So the God Slayers, they're out there. Don't know exactly what they're doing, but that's what I know about them. We have Mount Radiance, which is this big mountain. I mostly put it because I really like the idea that the players can see a mountain at some point on the horizon. Always is in a Westmarches, I found that putting like a singular mountain somewhere is a great, not just is it like a good visual marker so that players can know relative to it where they are as like they're traveling around, but also as a draw. People tend to go towards the mountain. Not only that, once you're there, you can look around and see the whole surrounding landscape. So it's like, Breath of the Wild. You see the high point, you want to get to the high point. So I put a mountain pretty central. It's pretty central. So if you get there, you'll be able to see basically the whole map. Yeah, exactly, ADG. It's kind of a place to go. Respite and the mountain kind of look like the end of the journey, but in fact, they're not, right? They're just the beginning. Because once you open up, you go, whoo, it opens up everywhere. All right. So Temple of the Last Light, I don't know. What I know is that there's a Shrine of the First Light over here. So I'm not sure exactly what the Temple of the Last Light is relative to the First Light. I liked the fact that there were two of them. One is a shrine, one is a temple. So this one's bigger. It's not exactly on the mountain, but if you notice, the mountain actually has a little dungeon gate here too. So the mountain has some sort of something there. Okay. Now over here in the Savwood, you just have a few other adventures. The Faygold Mine and Pharaoh's Camp. So I think this is somebody who's actively trying to like another outside group that has found Faygold, which maybe is like Mithril or something. I don't know. Anyway, and they're trying to take advantage of it, but of course they've all gone crazy and they're dangerous too now. So adventure sites. Basically, it's another rumor. You can hear about somebody, maybe they're headquartered in Ordeal and they're like, hey, our camp hasn't responded. Please go find out why. And you go there and you find out, oh, it's because they dug up something bad in Faygold. Classic dwarves. If you have some dwarves in your setting, maybe it's a dwarf digging too greedily and too deep situation. Now I have the Conclave up here, which is, I really like this. The Conclave is basically a hidden meeting place. And I think it's going to be something that the players could technically stumble on early if they just like explore hexes and just go around. But the idea here is that this is where the Archons met. Outside the city, far from anything, it was like a place of meeting. And so it's going to be like a lots of secrets about the world and maybe some powerful magic there. Players can pick up if they find it. But it's like, I always like it when quote unquote end game material is close to home. The players just can't access it or know about it. So maybe the doors of the Conclave are locked with like the 5 seals of the different Archons or something, and you have to go collect those from around the map somewhere. Things like that. So they can get to it early, but they can't get into it early. So that's the Conclave over here. It's an end game dungeon, higher level dungeon, right? Level 6, 7 dungeon or something like that. But theoretically, the players could find it at like level 1 or 2. So they just can't get into it. It's the Conclave. And again, I don't know more about it than that. All this stuff, as I'm telling you, basically is what I know. Pilgrim, giant statue, like a Colossus-sized statue out here. And I think people probably live amongst its feet. Maybe pilgrims or some sort of tribesmen or something like that. Some mad folk, or maybe there's a hermit who lives out here who can tell people stuff. Anyway. Now you get to the City of Throne itself. And I have actually developed Throne a little bit. Here, I'll show you guys the map I have of Throne, which I'm actually kind of happy with. Yeah, so here, I generated it. I don't know if you guys can see it. But I basically did like a point crawl with public domain art of a different bunch of locations. And I named them. And essentially the players can explore. And I'm going to put like little, sub-locations in each of these with maybe like west of the city is like certain random encounter charts, and east of the city, the eastern side of the city, is a different set of encounter charts. But it's a very simple little map of the city, and all the various places in it. I think it's pretty cool. I like it. Anyway, the city is going to be not abandoned, but it's going to be like, overrun and ruined. And there are some locations where, you can still find some people. Maybe there's some helpful NPCs somewhere. Maybe there's some mad NPCs somewhere. Maybe there's lots of creatures here. But anyway, you go through the different locations, and you're trying to make your way. I mean, wherever you want to go. It's a point crawl. There's lots of different adventures to be had here. There's the Dark Palace up here. There's the Palace of the Archons here. The Grand Memorial. I don't know. Maybe the Shrine of Patience or the Spire. There's the Arena, which I don't know exactly what the Arena is, but you can see the Colosseum there in the distance. The Gardens and the Menagerie, and then you get the Fated Gate out here. So as you go further east, it becomes more and more wild, because you have the Mausoleums down here, which are a bunch of like very, very isolated tombs, big kind of Valley of Kings sort of thing. And then you have the Gardens and the Dark Palace, which is just sort of out there. Crow, good. I'm glad it's sounding epic. I'm happy. I mean, it's coming along super fun so far. I'm enjoying it quite a lot. And then once you get to the Fated Gate out here in the Holy City, you start to see out on the eastern side, you have the Gallows and Crowhome and the Fading. And I think this is basically like the mist from it's from a lot of things, but it's a foggy, misty region where horrible things live. And out here. And so the west side, the Fields of Toil, you have these wheels. These are all these giant, huge, like, what would you call them? Windmills, but they're not actually windmills. Yeah, yummy a little bit. It's kind of like a flowchart. Again, it's a point crawl more than anything else. The city, I think you mean. The city is sort of set up like a point crawl, yeah. So you can go from place to place. You can explore one. You can't just get to anywhere from any place. You have to pass through certain places first. And so as the players explore the city, basically, you direct them from one point to the next with descriptions of the streets as they travel, but you kind of make that just like kind of, quick. You don't have them run street by street. At least I don't. Whenever I run city crawls, basically, I don't do like street by street description. I do point crawls, right? So you have a town square or a location, and the surrounding region is kind of caught up in that. And then as the players are moving from point to point, you describe how they're traveling, and maybe you have a random encounter along the way. Anyway. Yeah, ADG. No, unfortunately not. Unfortunately, it does not lead to a giant exhaust organ. That would be great. No, I found the Last Judge first. I don't know if you played the game. I found the Last Judge first, and then I found out, evidently online, that you can actually get into the city by going through the giant exhaust organ and skipping the Last Judge entirely. I banged my head against the Last Judge for about an hour before I finally beat him, or her. Really rough. It was rough. But finally did. So got through it. Okay, so here you go, out on the east side. I don't know who Quint is, but I always like the guy from Jaws, so I'm imagining him like that. He's a fisherman on the river or something like that. Okay, anyway, up through here, you have the Gallows and Crowhome. So the Fading is really rough. I think it's like, kind of like taking the mist from the movie. I think it's like, horrible nightmares come to life there now. And so the Fading, it's like things don't exist there. They're not so real. So it's a little bit like drawing, of course, a lot of inspiration from Eberron, which has that scar, that white misty scar. I think I'm doing something like that here. So you can navigate through this eastern part of the city, but it's really scary and hard. And so the players are probably going to come in from the west side. But they could come in from the east side, but it's really hard and creepy. There's a road to follow, so it's not like it's hard to actually get to the city. You don't have to like solve a puzzle to get there or like navigate through the mist. There's a road, but just the stuff you're running into out there is pretty awful. And anyway, you have these giant windmills, and they're haunted, infested, ruined, and then one of them's a gallows. And anyway, setting them up, I don't know exactly what I just named them as I did. So out here you have the Blasted Canyons and Cogwork. So one of the dudes was some sort of what would you say, Saruman-esque figure, right? He saw power in industrialization and machines. So Cogwork and the Blasted Canyons, the manufactory, the main shaft. It's like a bunch of mined, blasted, hillsides and totally strip mined places. And totally ruined. And it's in the middle of what was once this massive forest, right? You can see that the forest kind of extends on all sides of it, but the middle of it's just ripped out. Up here you have the forest heart, which is still green. Down here you got Needlewood, the Saltleaf Road. I've talked a little bit about the Saltleaf Road a little bit in the post. It's basically this salt-encrusted, kind of perverted forest where the needles and the thorns drain the water of the things that they can get their hands on. Usually, Ulfhammer, yeah. Usually my players are pretty self-motivated. And when I set out a Westmarches, when I say that's what we're playing, then yes, my players tend to become very, very self-motivated. Mostly it's how many magic items can I acquire? That tends to be their goal. But I have one player whose goal is to like find a, how would you say it? Find a particular niche in the world that he could play up, and he likes to roleplay like, I don't know, chronicler would be the wrong word, but something like that. Like my goal is to chronicle and see as much of this as I can and to like relate it. So he plays bards or he'll play rangers, and he'll like, oh yes, I've heard of this. He does that sort of thing, right? Where he tries to be somebody who wants to see the world for itself. Like he makes it his goal, which is cool. An exploration kind of character. A lot of my players are, well, when I run a Westmarches, which last Westmarches I ran was a couple years ago, I'm probably about 15 players that are regular in that group. And so it's big enough to run a Westmarches. And a couple of them are just power gamers, like full straight up power gamers. And so they just try to find as much, well, it's like the last Westmarches I ran was actually in 5th edition. And their goal was to find the most broken combination of race class and the most cool magic items they could find and just wreck the world. Which is actually a great motivation in a Westmarches because it means, there's tons of really high danger spikes everywhere. And so they pushed themselves to try to get into those as early as they could. And that was fun because very often they just lost characters that way. And then I have players who are much more story-based, but they recognize it's kind of like, no, there isn't as much of a story. You got to do like a plot or environmental storytelling, but they're interested in that, learning this sort of environmental story. Anyway, here, the overall environmental story is basically golden land that was a prison. These Archons who have all gone mad in their own way and are settled in various parts, gone mad or destroyed or been just devoured by their own creations or whatever. Maybe there's a couple that are still alive and of something like sound mind, but they're not really able to project their power. So the idea here is not that this is a land in equilibrium. Well, maybe equilibrium is the right word, but it's a kind of a land in dormancy. That's a way to put it, right? It's a dormancy. And yeah, you can go and fight the thing that's kind of corrupted this whole world. It's just gradually drawing pilgrims in and killing them. Like, it's not actually actively hurting you, the players. And it's not even trying to conquer the world. It's just this evil place that's like a evil spider, right? That just has a web set up and it's going to eat certain things. And it's like, well, if we want to go and destroy the spider, we can try it. Or we can just profit off the chaos and the destruction and get as much gold and magic items as we can, or just have fun adventuring. Like, your players can be motivated differently as they are. But I really wanted the exactly crow. I wanted it to just be there, right? That's the goal. I wanted it to just be there. And each of the different subregions are going to be like that too. So Malice is where the undead dude went. The one who was obsessed with life, new life, re-life, making things live again, including himself, one of the Archons. And so he's wrapped up in the Temple of the Wrapped One. Now he's a mummy or something like that, right? Anyway, why did I bring that up? Oh yeah, he's just there, right? Whatever form he has turned into, it's not one that it can project some power, right? It can project power in the sense of his minions are wandering around in the Gilded Waste. One of the random encounter tables there will have, undead on it. But he's not trying to conquer the city. Or if he is, it's a plot that will take 8,000 years to accomplish, and it's no immediate threat. That's the idea here, and all of them are like that. You have the Palace of Steel, same thing. A dude who's obsessed with strength and physical form, and and blades and razors and things like that. I don't know exactly yet, but I have some ideas. You get down to the Forest Heart, you have the Palace of Flowers, who's the the one who says the world should be green and overgrown and filled with life, and of course she's just like mulching things and whatever it is. And then you've got, I don't know, I think I've got a few of them here. Down here, the Isle of the Archon has the Ninefold Tomb. It's kind of a place that was built to be the final tomb for all of the Archons. and maybe a couple of them are actually entombed there. But the fact is the rest of the tombs are empty. So if the players ever do go to the Isle of the Archon and they find these ninefold tombs, this massive dungeon crypt complex, right? Not massive, but a crypt complex. They'll be like, okay, well, there were a couple dead bodies here, but the rest are empty. This one was never used. This one looked like it got broken out from the inside. Great. So we've got a bunch of these really powerful Archons running around the countryside somewhere. I think, for example, Grandmother Widow is going to be one of the Archons, but she's like a hermit. She's actually just like a kind of crazy witch who actually knows the truth. But she's just kind of like there. I don't know what her whole deal is. Maybe she's like an NPC who gives quests. I don't know. Maybe she's not actually dangerous. You got the Sinner's Isle, that's the cell. And I think one of the Archons regretted his action. And he tried to set the Palette Princess free. He tried to wake her up again. Because he was like, oh no, she's going to drive us all mad or something. Maybe he saw the truth or whatever. Anyway, they imprisoned him here on Sinner's Isle. So that's another big bad guy who's gone mad, and he's now imprisoned there. They've all gone mad. It's a land of madness and haunting and all of that. Anyway, I don't know. That's the overview. Hope that makes sense to people. I think it's pretty cool. I'm psyched. Obviously, as ADG pointed out, heavy inspiration from Silksong, but I'm also drawing on just my own Westmarches experiences and other things too. And I'm changing significantly a handful of the things from from the main quote unquote story of Silksong. There's no activity from this. There's no will from this sealed princess. She's quite literally asleep. It's just what she is drives people mad. So there's not like she's trying to do something. And again, that's why I wanted to move away from plot. She's not trying to do something. She's not trying to manipulate people into freeing her. She's quite literally trapped. And it's just this mindless chaos, this mindless corruption, this mindless madness that just spreads into others from her. And if you tap into her power, which you can, then that's the case. So if you have a system, you know, if you're going to use clerics or priests or something in your system, they better not be worshiping her. Because otherwise they're just going to go mad. Anyway, okay. So I hope that makes sense. I'm going to go down to here and start to do some notes about these first locations. So Drowned Sanctum, Cave of the Prayer Thief, Seat of Judgment, Scale Tower, Flint Tower, Froa's Camp, maybe... Yeah, just basically stuff that you could arrive at first. That's what I'm going to be doing today. So let's see, locations. Location overviews. Okay. So we have Ordeal, or Ordeal's End. That there. And I'll leave that for now. We'll go down here. We'll start with the Shriek. And we'll do A. No. C-27. How about that? We'll do the actual... Great. Oh, great. Ulfhammer and Crow. Yeah. Well, thank you, Crow. I will definitely be publishing it eventually. That's the idea. But again, it's going to be free or pay what you want. I'll probably put it up as pay what you want. I mean, if people want to throw me some money for it, sure. But I don't want people to have to pay for it. Again, a lot of this is like, I am firmly of the opinion that the best things that a GM does are steal from other people, right? Legally and politely and with proper citations, but steal everything that's not nailed down and on fire. And the whole idea for this, right? I mean, I was inspired to do this because I played through Hollow Knight Silksong, and I was like, I want to make a world based on this. So I don't want to claim that this is all mine and like, hey, you guys got to pay me for it. It's like, no, I came up with this because I played another awesome game, and I was actually inspired by them. The people who made it, Team Cherry, they could have charged $50-$60 for that game easy. It's easily 80 hours of gameplay and incredible 80 hours of gameplay. I know people have beaten it really quick. 30 hours is the time frame that you kind of have to do it to get the speed run for 100%. 30 hours of gameplay if you 100% the game and get the speed run. Anyway, they charge $20 for it. That's crazy. $20 and all the DLC for it's going to be free. That's awesome. So I don't know. I'm inspired by people like that who are like, hey, here's a really cool thing. Have it for free. So, or cheap. In their case, cheap. But for me, I'm going to do it for free. I'm going to try to make something cool and put it out there for free. And again, if people want to pay, that's awesome. They can. But this is not going to have the high level of polish that like charged products will have, right? I'm not going to have great art for it. It's just going to be public domain or what I can get my hands on. Although, I don't know if you guys know Randy M. Randy did the Bay of Spirits, which is a great setting, one of my favorite settings. And Randy said that I could use his art for any project I do, which is really, really, really cool. He reached out and offered that to me, and that's so generous of him. He said, yeah, anything I have, any project to do, you can just use it. I think it was just as a thank you for showing it off on the channel, but it was really generous of him. So I can use his art, and I'll probably use it for some of the characters and some of the locations and stuff like that, which is really cool. Yeah, ADG, me too. Sea of Sorrows. Looks like we're going to be getting some Lifeblood. It's going to be about Lifeblood. That's my guess. I don't know if you got through to the western side and dealt with the alchemist and his apprentice and the Lifeblood stuff out on the western side of Farloom, but he mentions salt water. He says that I found my master found Lifeblood underneath salt water, and of course the new one's Sea of Sorrows, and it's salty and stuff. So I think it's probably going to deal with Lifeblood. Also, there's the blue wings, which is sort of the Lifeblood mechanic, or the Lifeblood look, has the blue wings. Good old hammer, awesome. Yeah. Okay, so the Shriek, the Drowned Sanctum. The Drowned Sanctum. So that's what I know. Oh yeah, ADG. So I beat the game first and finished Act 2, and I was like, well, that's weird. But this is Team Cherry, so there's probably alternate endings. And then I did some things, and I got Act 3, and I was like, wow. So not only is there an alternate ending, there's an entirely hidden act of the game, which is about at least as long as the other two if you do it in its entirety, if you do everything you could do in it. That's crazy. They just hid an act behind a secret ending. So awesome. Yeah, man, I love Team Cherry. They're great. And the game is hard, but definitely doable. I know people were complaining about it being too hard. I was like, yeah, I see why. There were some fights that were kind of frustrating to me, but man, it is worth it, and it's super fun. In fact, that game has just so many good ideas for GMs, not just in its plot, but in its actual structure. I think if you compare the beginning of that game to the beginning of Hollow Knight, it's like head and shoulders, night and day better. Hollow Knight begins in sort of a way that I think a lot of DMs start campaigns. Like, here's a location, and here's you just go. Whereas Silksong starts off with very little story. I actually was going to make a video on this and talk about how the first 10 minutes of Silksong can teach you to be a better GM. I actually might make that. In fact, now that I say that aloud, I think I might actually do that as a video title. Make you a better DM, because it just starts off so well. Punchy, no dialogue. You don't even know your character's name for the first 10 minutes of the game. You're just playing. That's it. That's so good. All right. Okay, so C27, the Drowned Sanctum. Now, there's a question about what I want this to be. Why is it drowned? Well, the sodden fields were not always sodden. They're not always as expanded as they are. Something out here, bog pool, maybe the bog poolians, whatever this is. This is a settlement, a village. Maybe they're spreading this. Maybe they spread it out over this way, or maybe it was something else that was destroyed, and then just over time the swamp, as it expanded and spread through, drowned it anyway. So now it's called the Drowned Sanctum, but the drowning had nothing to do with its destruction. Maybe that's right. So the drowning had nothing to do with its destruction. Yeah, Crow, definitely. There could be a dam out here somewhere, up here in the scales in the mountains. Oh, ADG, the Crawfather fight was awesome. I actually, there were 2 fights in the game that I intentionally lost just so that I could fill out my monster book. And Crawfather was one. I intentionally lost a couple times just so that I could kill enough of those special crows to get the full compendium for them. And then the later fight, which I won't spoil for you, a later fight, another gauntlet that I intentionally lost a few times because I wanted to fill out my monster book. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I won't get a chance to kill these creatures again. And I was right. That if I wanted to get the full entry, I had to intentionally lose a few times. But for the most part, no, I did not intentionally lose fights in that game because it was really hard. But that was one of them, Crawfather. That was a good one. All right. So it could put a broken dam. Yeah, Crow. I'm more interested right now in the location itself and its purpose. So it was maybe it was a place of final thanksgiving, right? So you arrive at Ordeal, and before you head to the seat of judgment, maybe you went down to this temple here, and it was a place of final offering and thanks. You've made your journey, however long it took you. You've arrived at Ordeal's end. You've finally made it. And there's a 3, 6, 9, 12-mile hike down to the Drowned Sanctum. Or it wasn't Drowned Sanctum then, but it was a 12-mile hike down to another temple. Maybe it was a shrine, like a tomb. Maybe it was like the final resting place of a pilgrim guardian, right? Or like a famous saint or someone who gave their life to protect pilgrims along the way. That could be it. Yeah. Was the resting place, I'm convincing myself, was the resting place of a famous guardian of pilgrims who traveled the roads, keeping them safe. So you arrive safely. The tradition is you go and offer thanks at his tomb or her tomb. You offer thanks there. That was the tradition. Now, in the ages since this whole thing has fallen apart, it's gotten swampy. Maybe the road was like raised and the place was like built up, but over time it kind of sank down. So I don't know. I think that's a good idea. Was the resting place of a famous guardian of pilgrims who traveled the roads, keeping them safe. Over the ages was swallowed by the swamp. Let's see. Those are both. I'm going to bullet point this. Now, why is it called the Shriek? Is there a creature in mythology or D&D that kills you with a shriek? Isn't there? There's a banshee, but other than the banshee, I don't know if I want to use the banshee. I could use a banshee, right? That there's a spirit there that screams out your name or screams out your sins, and if you hear it, then many just die when they hear their sins told to them or something like that, right? That's the idea behind it. Or that's the tradition. Again, that's the legend. Whether it's actually that or it's just a creature that shrieks and blows up your brain. Yeah, it could be a mandrake. Yeah, a mandrake does that. Could be a huge plant. Maybe it's been taken over by a big mandrake plant, like I'm thinking Castlevania style. Those giant plants that shriek. Ooh, the Confessor Crow. Yeah, I like that. Maybe it's the Confessor. Ooh, the Confessor. Shrieks out your sins. Causing madness in those unworthy. And mechanically, that just means what? That just means make a wisdom check or like a spell saving throw or something like that, right? Mechanically, it means like overcome the saving throw. But in the game, again, remember, this is going to be system neutral. That was what, it was funny. The poll was about 42% of people said it should be system neutral. But if I added up OSE and Shadow Dark, it was like over 50%. So it's funny. It was a plurality, not a majority. Luvas GG makes me think of a huge bat thing. Also, the idea that it's shrieking. I like that. Like vampiric. Yeah. Bat-like. Ooh, that's creepy. Hey, Brain Cane. Going well, man. Thank you for joining. Just right now, kind of putting together stuff for my Westmarches here. Yeah, ADG, totally. I love ability attacks. I love attacks that drain abilities. It's so much cooler to me. Yeah, totally, Ulfhammer. So, drains ability, wisdom, charisma, or something mental. At 0, drives into zealous, not zealous, drives into madness. Okay. Yeah, exactly. So you become some sort of mad thing. And so the shriek is so called because that's where it dwells. It dwells in the drowned sanctum, the confessor. Shrieks out your sins, causing madness in those unworthy bat-like drains ability. Exactly, OG, exactly, Crow. Because in my system, especially for playing Shadow Dark, the way I did it was that hit points come back at the end of every long rest. So you get long rest, you're boom. But any abilities that have been drained, including Constitution, but any ability only comes back 1 point per day. So if you have regular ability attacks from things, not only are your stats going down and therefore your rolls are harder, but it's so much easier to die the next time you run into something like that. So I'm going to be putting a lot of ability drain into the creatures I come up with for this world because I just like it. I think it's super cool, and it fits for a Westmarches too. Although for a Westmarches, it's a little trickier because time spent resting is a little unclear. What I did in my 5th edition game was any abilities. Basically, you have to sit out a session. For every session that you sit out, or I forget how I did it. Basically, the next time you play, you have half of your ability points back, and then basically every time you come back, you get half of your ability back. So if it's half and then fully charged. So if you get ability drain, say, and you lose 2 Constitution, the next time you play, you're going to be down 1 Constitution, and then the next time you play after that, assuming your Constitution hasn't gone down anymore, you'll be back to full. So it kind of has like a half-life. I don't know. It's hard to describe exactly, but in Westmarches, I do things like that. So that way there are consequences for your character. You can't just rest and wait for your abilities to come back. The next session you play, regardless of, that's what I would say. The next session you play, regardless of how long it's been, unless you pay to have your abilities recovered in town or something, only half have returned. Okay, so Shriek, Drowned Sanctum. Yeah, something like that, Brain. Because again, I want consequences for things like ability drain, and in a Westmarches, it's hard to do that. Yeah, it could be Ulphammer. Yeah, although I think I do like the idea that there are still pilgrims in Ordeal's End, and they're like, I'm gonna fill that out. There's gonna be some priest there, some cleric there who has actual power, and he's like, maybe he's doubting this whole religion. One thing I want to make clear so I'm a person of faith. I'm Roman Catholic myself. I realize I'm really down on religion in this whole this whole setting, but I'm not actually down on religion myself. So I want to make it clear that in this setting, there's there are clerics who can do good things, and I want that to be the case. I really don't like settings where everything is overwhelmingly dark and there's no light. So there's definitely going to be light here. It's not going to be from this particular place. This is a perversion and an evil and all that stuff. So that's it's not the case that all of the gods are evil and all of the divine is evil and it's just a trick. No, it's this one. This one is. It's a very powerful trick and a very, very good one, but it's a quote unquote good one. Effective one. So there will be clerics who can actually use divine magic. Your player characters will be clerics, some of them at least, priests probably. And they can use divine magic and it won't drive them crazy to do it. So there's going to be some light. It's just not going to be from the world. Not much of it. There's some NPCs, but you, the players. This is what I ran a campaign world a few years ago. Actually, quite a few years ago now, like 10 or 20 years ago now. Gosh, was it really? No, it was like 15 years. Yeah, about 15 years. Anyway, and the players were all playing like morally gray characters, and I built the world that way. And man, it got overwhelmingly depressing for all of us. And so I realized, I was like, if the players are going to play morally gray characters, then the world has to have some real heroes in it. Otherwise, I just get too depressed. But if the players are going to be heroes, then I'm okay with the world being a bit more morally gray and dark, because then the heroes at least can bring the light. That's cool. Yeah, exactly. Hey, Mark. Hey, Violet. Welcome. Yeah, me too, Ulfhammer. You got to have some light, right? You got to have something. Even if it's the heroes themselves who are heroes. It's like there's the world's dark enough. I don't need a whole bunch of depression in my free time. Okay. So Drowned Sanctum. Let's see. Drowned Sanctum. All right. Confessor shrieks out your sins, causing madness in those who are unworthy. Bat-like drains ability. Wisdom. Can you guys actually see that whole document? I don't know if you even can. There we go. Okay, you guys can. Okay. So let's see. What else about this place? I want a few bullet points there. So we have a monster that's there. We have a kind of a reason for it being there. Exactly, ADG. The heroes, if there's no justice in the world, the heroes are going to have to do it. They'll have to bring it. Alrighty. I totally agree with that. Okay. Yeah, Gin, that's actually a good point too. Gin and Tonic. By the way, that's a genius name. I love that. Gin and Tonic. That's hilarious. But yeah, it's a good contrast. So there's good, it provides attention. Yeah, totally. If the heroes are at odds with the tone of the world, yeah. I like it when heroes play heroes. When I was young, I played Knights of the Old Republic a ton. I could never bring myself to play the Sith path. I couldn't do it. I would tell myself, okay, this time I'm going to play the Sith. And every time I would end up playing the Jedi because I was like, no, I feel too guilty ruining these people's lives, even though they're just NPCs in a video game. I can't be evil to them. I couldn't do it. So I always played the Jedi path. And then Knights of the Old Republic 2 tried to make it confusing, but then of course they abandoned that at the end, and they were like, yeah, the Grey Jedi are also just Sith, but they're secretly Sith. That's the difference. Okay. What else do I want about this place? Treasure. Something here. Well, obviously, the offerings of pilgrims over the ages. So, treasure. That's one thing that's here. One reason to go there. Reasons to go. Boom. Now, another reason to go might be... how am I doing this? Boom. Because someone decided that they were going to do this, there's a notice board, and someone says, hey, my sister decided she was going to do the traditional offering at the sanctum, and she hasn't come back in 2 days. Please, someone go find her. We were about to head to the seat of judgment together, and I don't want to go on alone. That kind of thing. Missing pilgrim who decided to try the old tradition. Something like that. Right, that's something there. Yeah, exactly, Jen. And that's what I'm going to be doing here, but again, in the world building. So this is what I'm going to try to emphasize to players, or to GMs who run this, is that it's going to be so much more effective to have the players learn of what's really going on through environmental storytelling and let them put it together and don't confirm or deny anything, right? That's the temptation I always have when I'm running big campaigns, especially pre-made ones, where like there's tons of lore that I know about, is that I'm tempted to always go and just tell players, yeah, that's a good guess. Oh yeah, that's actually what's going on. Like I'm tempted to do that. And it's so much more effective if you don't. Just present stuff to the world, present the objects and the factions and the creatures, and let the players, if it's a big Westmarches too, you'll have a bunch of players, let them discuss it and let them say, oh, I thought it was going to be this. That's what I thought. Let's see, Brain, off topic, but I was going to comment anyway and ask if you ever got the free DTRPG copy of my module. Yes, I did. Thank you for sending that over. Giant's Cottage. Yes, I did. Thank you, Brain. And thanks for double checking. I did. I've been getting a lot of really cool stuff recently, actually. I'm going to do another physical book review haul video soon because people have been sending me stuff. And I got some stuff that was really kind of cool. Wasn't books, some miniatures. Hey, Arcane. Well, don't worry. I've been going for about, 40 minutes now. Almost an hour. But I'm still going to be going for a while this afternoon, so don't worry. Don't worry. We still got time. Okay. What else? Is there an artifact here at the Drowned Sanctum? Something, the skull of the hero? Hey, Gami. Hey, all. Merry Christmas. Yeah, happy Christmas week to everybody. Do you guys know Merry Christmas was popularized by Charles Dickens? It was Happy Christmas up until Charles Dickens and the Christmas Carol. I mean, people said Merry Christmas, but it was way less common. Happy Christmas was the traditional phrase at that point. Happy Christmas. And then he said, Merry Christmas, so many times in that book that everyone started using it. Okay. At least that's the story. Who knows if that's true? But I heard that somewhere. Yeah, Violet, thank you. Appreciate that. I never tell people to like and subscribe because I'll tell you, that's one of the most, for me, annoying things that YouTubers do in their videos. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm like, if I want to like and subscribe, I'm going to do it. You don't have to tell me. Right? Yeah, Crow. So I honestly just the last minute decided to do this. I actually wasn't even going to. So I like 10 minutes before I jumped on, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do a live stream for this because I was just going to prep. No, Violet, but I appreciate it. So other people can certainly say it. I have no problem with you saying it. Thank you. I appreciate it. I just don't like saying it because I was like, man, I as a YouTuber, I'll let people make their own minds up about that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, the skull of the repentant sinner. I like that, ADG. Something like that. The skull of the dude. The skull of the skull of something. Skull of Raoul. The golden skull of Raoul, if you guys get the reference to that. Let's see. Something that helps you, gosh, re-roll a random encounter check once a day. How about that? It's a guardian of pilgrims, right? Some artifact that lets you, whoever has it gets to re-roll a random encounter check or something like very meta, right? It protects you on the road. I don't know. Something like that. Skull of the Pilgrim. Skull of the Guardian of the Way. Oh, awesome. Yeah. Love us GG. That's great to hear. Yeah, I would love for people to tell me how they've adapted my map there. What I was hoping was people would post their own versions of it. Hasn't happened. At least I haven't seen very many. I saw a couple on Reddit, but not that many. That'd be awesome if people posted some more. Anyway, yeah, have a good one. Happy Christmas. Yeah, Sentinel Skull. Sentinel's Skull. The relic of the ancient guardian of the roads. Let's the bearer reroll a random encounter check, or if you're using the underclock die, reset the number to add 10 to the number. Something like that. Yeah, the skull of the undecided path. The skull of the pilgrim's path. Something like that. Sentinel skull path / undecided path / pilgrims something. Awesome. Okay. I really like the underclock, so I'm going to be suggesting people use that. That's what I use for most of my games. Yeah, the something. Okay. That seems pretty good. Now, what lives there besides the Shriek? Well, the Mindless. Let's see. Actually, I'll go back here, and we'll go like this. Monsters. And then we're going to go boom. The mindless husks that the Confessor created. So that's something that's there. Yeah, Jen, exactly. You have to be carrying it. Exactly. It's an artifact. It takes up a slot in your inventory. So if you're using inventory slots, which I always do inventory slots, it's easier. Then it takes up some of that space. So, but it's a good one, and you can just reroll random encounter. So if you guys are really weak on your return, you can't risk that random encounter. Boom, you can use the Sentinel Skull and just ignore it, or you can wait until you get the result. Something like that. I don't know. It does something related to random encounters. I love that idea though. That, or when you're on the road, you get a plus something to your checks. I don't know. Regardless. What else is there? So the Confessor itself, the mindless husks that this thing has created. And what else is in the Drowned Sanctum? Mindless things would be fine against it. Earless things. Oozes. Could be Crow. Yeah, so here's my question is whether it's a beast or whether it's a minded creature. Oh yeah, Jin, you actually literally have to carry it. Yeah, that would work too. You hold it up and scare away all of the... I love that. Something mindless, right? Something that wouldn't be affected by the sounds. So there's sort of like a natural predator or a natural enemy that you can... Oozes might work. There is the Ooze Father. Yeah, Crow, I like that. Could go... oops. No, not there. The Ooze Father's up here. So there is a source of oozes. Or maybe it's a dude who controls oozes, or maybe the source of oozes is somewhere over in Throne. But this is just a sentient ooze or something like that who senses all of his oozes throughout the rest of the world. Regardless, the Ooze Father is up there. Down here, we have the Drowned Sanctum still. Could be oozes. Oozes. It would make sense in the slimy swamp. What else is in the slimy swamp? Snakes can't hear, right? I don't think snakes can hear. Snakes. And it makes sense with Scale Tower, too. There's some snakes out here, right? It looks like it's the Scale Tower, meaning the scales, like judgment scales, but it's actually scales as of like alligators. Can alligators hear? Somebody look that up for me. I don't know if alligators can hear. I think they can. Because you could put like some sort of big old dinosaur-like alligator-like lizard snake-like thing out here. Legless worms. Yeah, worms. Not big ones. Worms. Little ones. Could do that. And they're earless. They sense through vibration. So alligators do have ears. Okay, Gami. Snakes don't hear, though, right? Yeah, they can sense vibrations. Okay, there we go, Crow. So alligators can, okay. Well, how about this? What about you get worms who burrow through the swampy ground, or they swim through the swampy ground, and they come up and they bite. They're like earless little blind worms out there. Earless worms, little ones. And the big one is going to be over in Scale Tower. Yeah. There we go. Snakes can hear. Okay, so they have... it's always funny. Snakes probably can't hear the sound of a bell. I remember in Sherlock Holmes, in the Speckled Band, Dr. Roylott, is it Roylott? Yeah, I think it's Roylott. He calls the snake back to his room with a bell. And that wouldn't actually have been possible. Snakes can't hear that way. They can't hear that sort of sound, I think is what I was thinking of. So it's a mistake that Arthur Conan Doyle did. But that makes sense then, Crow. So it's vibrations. Yeah. That makes sense. Something like that. Okay. So these earless ones, though, these ones can't. How about that? They just sense through vibration. Sense vibration in the ground. Sourced from Scale Tower. Great. That works for me. Actually. I like that a lot. Okay, they're very sensitive vibrations. That makes sense. So I'll say these ones can. How about that? Deaf worms. There we go. Yeah, they got to pick up good vibrations. As long as the Beach Boys are playing, they are unable to attack. All right. Yeah, deaf worms, mindless husks, and the Confessor. Maybe flying creatures. Bats, if he's a bat-like thing. Maybe bats out here. Sturges. Giant bats. Bat-like creatures. The children of the Confessor. bat-like beings that mimic his shriek on a much smaller scale. Something like that. The beach bards. Yeah, there you go, Jen and Tonic. Beach bards. Okay, I think that's good for a dungeon. What do you guys think? I mean, that honestly, for many of these locations, that might be the extent of what I put into my book. Stuff like this. Not detailing every floor, but saying, hey, here's the boss. Here's some advice about what to do here. Here are the creatures there. I mean, I'm going to fill out the stats, or not fill out the stats, but I'll develop it more. But like, this is the extent of the kind of the stuff I will suggest for a place. I might include a map, but maybe an unkeyed map. I don't know. We'll figure it out. So we have these gross worms. We have husks. We have the confessor. Now the question I have about him is he a thinking thing? I think no. I think it's instinctual. So he's not actually shrieking out sins. He's just shrieking. That's just the tradition. The tradition is that he shrieks out what you've done, but it's actually just the sound of this creature. So stories say it shrieks out your sins and causes man of those unworthy. Or maybe it does. Maybe it is minded. It would be more creepy if it was sort of minded. What if it's quasi-minded? Yeah. I don't know. Can read surface thoughts in an instinctive way, and vague words can be heard in the shriek. There we go. How about that? Something like that. So it's instinctual. It's not actually an intelligent thing, but it seems like it, and it mimics it. Mimics intelligence. Whatever that might mean. Anyway, I'll detail it more later. But what I really want to do in this sort of video is just this sort of thing. Yeah, I like creepy too. And that's what a lot of these places are going to be creepy. At least, especially in the swamp. I want swamp stuff. I've realized that, I've talked about this before, but D&D is like adjacent to survival horror, right? It's like adjacent to horror. It's often horrific. That's why it's so satisfying to kill these things for players, because they're creepy, and you just go and kill them. I like that Ulfhammer. these ghouls that follow this end of your sins, snuffling through the dark after you. I'm going to use that somewhere else, because I think these guys are just like zombies, basically. Mindless husks. They can't really think. They just kind of shuffle. I like the idea they're shuffling around. Shuffling about. Attacking wildly. Actually, no. They have a reaction table. Yeah. There's a reaction table, and most of the time they attack you. But sometimes they don't. Sometimes they just mumble. And they'll respond to being attacked. But they're mindless. They're not just violent. Yeah. I like that. The worms, I mean, the confessor, he's going to come and eat you. Or he lives, dreams, yeah. Yeah, exactly. They're too busy shuffling. Exactly, Violet. All right, well, that is C27 in a nutshell. I don't think I'm going to... Let's see. Do I want a different font? Sometimes I do. Perpetua. Boom. There we go. I like that font better. I don't know why. We're going to go like this. And we're going to upgrade the font size of these. There we go. All right. That will do for now. Let's do Cave of the Prayer Thief. E-25. 3 mile hexes, Wally. 3 mile. Cave of the Prayer Thief. I was going to do 6 mile hexes, but then I realized the size of the world was way too big. This is about the same exact, almost identical, except for those of you who go back. Square miles, this is almost identical to the size of New Jersey. That's about this size in terms of square miles. It's almost exactly the same size as the state of New Jersey. So that's a reasonable size for a sandbox Westmarches, in my opinion. Anything bigger than that, you're talking about a different kind of travel, a different kind of domain. Something like, I don't know. I've done ones that are about the size of Ireland before, the size of Greece. I've done ones that are the size of like North Carolina. Those are good for certain kinds of adventures. But for a Westmarches, in my opinion, it should be more compact. It should be more closely connected. You want locations to really blend in one to the other, and you want them to be kind of punchy because players are going to go and come back and go and come back. It's less about exploring and kind of just getting lost in the wilderness. So anyway, smaller. That's what I wanted. So 3 mile hexes is why I settled where I settled. Again, that's all my opinion. But yeah, 3 mile hexes. Exactly. And one of the things that I do want to do is give a little table in every region. So if you guys go back, boom, 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 here we go. Give like a 10 entry table for every region about stuff you can find there that is completely left up to the GM. Just D10 table of inspiration of other locations you could put there. If you're like, ooh, I want to make the Shriek bigger. The players liked it, so I want to go back to it. Okay, well, here's a D10 table of stuff they could find there. Whether it's just creatures or like basically inspiration tables for each of these regions. So D10 for each of them. So you can expand them if you want and put a bunch more stuff into each hex if you want, or expand it out. You can do 1 mile hexes and make it really, really hex crawlable if you want. But hex crawling over a world this big, in my opinion, would be quite hard. It's quite big for that. But anyway, that's just what I'll do. So going back now, Cave of the Prayer Thief. First of all, what the heck is the Prayer Thief? Now, he's not, whatever he is, or whatever it is, it's not this confessor, right? That guy reads your sins and drains you. The Prayer Thief sounds like that. But he's stealing your sins. What does that even mean? Well, not sins, sorry, prayers. Prayer Thief. I actually think it's just a creature that eats you. I think it's just a dude who eats you. And the reason they call him a Prayer Thief is just because he kills pilgrims. Right? I don't know. Something like that. Maybe something like that. He leaves you confused. Could be like an Umber Hulk. Or something like an Umber Hulk. He looks at you and your memories go away. Again, that's a little bit like the Confessor, although that guy just drains your charisma and your wisdom. Makes you go mad from his shriek. Prayer Thief is... Or maybe it's a guy. Maybe it's called the Cave of the Prayer Thief because it's some guy who hid there. And it's his cave. And something else has gone and lived there now. So it's not actually... The Prayer Thief is not the thing currently residing there. It's the name of the place. The locals know it as the Cave of the Prayer Thief. Not because that's, again, not because a prayer thief lives there. Because that's where the cave got its name from. Could be something like that. Prayer Thief. Ah, yeah, Jen, could be. Yeah, divine magic doesn't work within the cave system. Ooh, that's tricky. It means clerics are going to want to avoid it. Priests are going to want to avoid it. Yeah. I like that. Divine magic doesn't work within the cave system. Why? Is it a creature? Is it a totem? Is it it's a de-sanctified place, unsanctified place? Is there an altar in there that's causing that disruption? Could be. Oh, it could be, Wally. Could be a corrupted cleric that siphons prepared spells. Oh, I like that. So I'm actually going to change that. So divine magic doesn't work. I'm going to use that somewhere. That's a great idea, Jen. But I'm going to have this be a dude who is a hermit who steals divine magic and gets cast. Yeah, I like that. Also, Arcane Recovery, that's a great idea. Have like a font of divine power. Yeah, I like that. What system was I just reading where you can find little, I mean, it's basically scrolls, right? Where you can find little bursts of divine power and use them to refill spell slots. I forget what system or book I was just reading. There's some adventure where I just read that, where there are little orbs or something, prayer scrolls or prayer tablets or something, but you can use them to recharge your divine casting. Oops. Let's see. Hermit who drains divine magic slots to cast his own. And maybe that's what's happening. Maybe there is a divine well there. In Shadow Dark, he takes grants disadvantage on divine spell checks to gain advantage on his own. Something like that. And then the place is a divine well that stores holy magic. Tapped, it can grant extra stuff. Oh, really? Okay, you like it? Good. I'm glad. It was a very odd choice, I'll admit. It was an odd choice for the black. And I know that some people are going to... I'll be honest, when I first looked at it, it looked a little bit like a Light Bright. You guys remember what those toys were? A Light Bright, where you have like the black background and you put the little pips in and they light up from the inside. It looked a little bit like a Light Bright, but I got used to it and I actually like it better now. And it's better for my eyes when I'm preparing, because I just don't like the bright white. I always do dark, everything dark on my screens, save my eyes a little strain. And so I liked it better, and then I kind of just got used to it. I like it. So it looks a little odd, but I like it. Yeah, Pity Rat looks a little like a Pip-Boy. That's a good point. I like that. Anyway, I think this is the final result. And until I find somebody who wants to draw me a nice map for free, because I can't really pay anybody, I can do hand-drawn maps, and I can do pretty good for hand-drawn maps. I don't have a lot of... Well, I guess I do have time. I don't know. I don't have the inclination to draw a whole map for this one. There are some parts of maps that I can't do well. I can do mountains really well. I can do forests really well. I cannot draw swamps that look believable on my map. Nor can I draw good coastlines. And I know that there are tricks to learn to get better, and I could. I'm just not there yet. So when I draw hand-drawn maps, I can do mountains and hills. Great. I can do fields pretty well. I can do cities pretty well. I cannot do coastlines and swamps and I don't know, other things too that I'm not good at. Like I don't know how to do deserts and things like that. I know, and again, I know there are tricks to do all this, but so because of that, I wanted to go with a digital map. So I think this is the one I'm going to end up going with, but we'll see. Okay. Yeah, exactly. So let's get back to this. Oops, not that. That's my color-coded one. Here we go. All right. Hermit who drains divine magic slots to cast his own. The place is a divine well. It stores holy magic tapped. It can grant extra stuff, which is a good reason for clerics to go there, but it's a dangerous place for them because he drains their magic. So, yeah. He's not just a violent guy, right? Maybe he's an NPC that the players can interact with or speak to. The prayer thief is very long-lived, has seen many things, and can give cryptic clues and hints about adventure sites and locations all around the world. Boom. One of the things I want to avoid is a big dungeon, like a very big dungeon, close to home. Because players will always do that first. Always. They're always going to go and spend their time. So that's why, like, I used to do dungeons below the home starting town. Like, you would have, like, one of my Westmarches had it was a big ruined city, and there was an undercity that was a dungeon. You could go out into the world, but you could also go down into the undercity. And like 4 out of every 5 sessions was down into the undercity because it had no travel time. It was right there. And people were just like, well, let's just do that. We'll just go down to the, and so if you put things close, they will just do that. Players will just do that and they won't go out and explore. So I want to keep things relatively simple around Ordeal. That way, you know, the Drowned Sanctum is a 2-level dungeon. Cave of the Prayer Thief, you know, 8 rooms and a boss with some other kind of things. So it's like a 1-session dungeon. Flint Tower, maybe 2-session, 3-session dungeon. Couple rooms in the tower, maybe a basement, and that's it. And then I want the players to start going out into the Savwood, into the Pilgrim's Way, and into the Sodden Fields, and over to the Scales. Like that's where I want them to go. Same with the Scales, actually. The Scales might be a 2 or 3 session dungeon too. Just like, hey, we can't clear it in 1 session, so we'll come back next time. And oh, there's a secret here that we didn't finalize. So, let's see, Pity Rat. What did you use to create the world? Is this off the dome piece, or are you using a system? I'm not sure what the dome piece there is. What did I use to create the world? The program I used was Worldographer, but I used a different map pack. Oh yeah, I just came up with the map off the top of my head. I just used I just came up with the regions myself. Yeah, just built it. There were some things that I knew I wanted, so I knew I wanted a centralized city, so I put that in first, and like an open area. And then once I did that, I was like, I want some mountains, and I want to hem it in. So I did a mountains along the west with a little valley to get in through down here. And then I did a coastline. I think I did the coastline first, now that I think about it. I think I did the coastline over here, and then I did the mountains. And then I said, okay, now that I have that, let's fill it in. And so I put in a dead forest up here because I like the dead forest. And I knew that beyond the dead forest was going to be this wasteland. So I put those in. I think that was like the first, after the city and after the mountains and coastline. That was the first thing I did. And then I just filled in regions. I was like, oh, I want a swamp around the coast. And one thing I really like, and again, this is kind of a bit of world building that kind of makes sense, right? Is you have the runoff here, which is this swamp down here. And then you have the cogwork and the blasted canyons up here along the river. So the idea here, right, is that the city, the refuse from the city, and all of the industrial waste of all the mining goes down the river and runs off into the swamp here. So it might have been a nice place a long time ago, but it got ruined, right? That's kind of the idea here. So it's the runoff. It's nasty. It's grimy. It's like, it's not like this is swamp. This is like, you know, industrial waste, basically. So it's a very different kind of swamp than the Sodden Fields, and I wanted that contrast east of the river. Another thing I like doing is I like making the zones based on actual river or actual boundaries. So you'll see that the White Road is basically, it's bounded by geographic locations. So you have the mountain, you have the borders of the town, you have the swamps, you have the river. And the same thing with the Pilgrim's Way. The Pilgrim's Way stops at all the forests, stops at the swamp hills. It includes the village, but just to the edge of it. It stops at the mountain and stops at the river. So I really like using terrain as like the demarcation of zones, which makes sense. That's the way actual borders mostly work in real life. One of the things I noticed was that actually, if you look at this map, you could almost use this as like a board game kingdom map. Like that they actually look, aside from some of the artificial ones like the Throne, these actually kind of look like real provincial maps from like, I don't know, you know, like the 15th century. They often look like this, especially if you color-coded them to be like who rules what, because very often lords got pieces of land all scattered around a kingdom. So you could have like 6 colors, and that could represent the different domains of 6 lords. And yeah, anyway, total tangent, but I always like that idea too. You create a region like this, and then you color-code them with who rules it, and you scatter it all around. Like William the Conqueror did when he conquered England. He scattered all of his lords' lands around England, so that they all owned bits and pieces of a big patchwork quilt. I like that. Okay, anyway. I think that's good enough for the Prayer Thief. Couple good entries. Again, it's a small dungeon. Well, actually, why would people go there? So, well, actually, I've already kind of explained that. There's the well itself. Tapped, you can get the extra stuff from the well. You can go to him for advice. If you beat him, maybe he doesn't die. Maybe his spirit lingers. Maybe he is a spirit. Maybe he is a spirit. He's just a wraith. So he's not actually a hermit. He might look physical. But you kill him, you defeat him, and he actually just kind of like comes to, and he's like, oh, hey, hello. Yes, sorry about that. I went a little mad there. Yeah. Ghostly hermit. Yeah, he's like a golem. Exactly. So he's more like he's just like oh yeah, hey, I'm actually not evil. And I can tell you about this, and I can tell you about stuff, but when you first encounter him, you got to beat him in order to get access to all of that. Very, very, oh, it could be like that, a fallen angel or a Nephilim, a spirit who was sent here to help. Yeah, that could be it too, Wolfhammer. A ghostly hermit, yeah, was a divine spirit. Cast down, exiled, sent, and forgot its own mission. That's a good question. And actually, maybe that's unknown. Maybe they beat him and he's like, I cannot recall. Was I sent here as a punishment? Was I sent here for a mission? Maybe he has a much greater significance later on in the Westmarches. They find out what he is in the final dungeon or something like that. That would actually be kind of cool. Not that they can maybe they can bring him an artifact that will let him return. His wings are hidden in the palace of the princess, and he doesn't know that. But the players come across them, and if they put 2 and 2 together, they can go back and give it to him, and he will ascend, give them a great boon, plus 10 to an ability score. Who knows what, right? You can do something like that. I like that. Connects to the final dungeon. Bring him X, and he will reward you greatly. Oh, that's one thing I forgot to say. There is going to be a fast travel system here. A fast travel system. Now, what you'll notice is that on some of these locations, there's a little orb hanging out, a little circle on some of these locations. Boom. Where are all of them? Boom. Yeah, there you go. Just a handful of them. Boom. There might be one more down here. Yeah. Palace of the Overseer has one. I think the cell has one. Yep. So there are these little orbs scattered about the map. And I think those are like floating, I don't know what they are. Floating little artifacts up in the air. If the players can access them, I don't know if they're actually there or if it's just a symbol of where they are. They might be like mirror orbs hidden away somewhere. And if the players access them, then there's going to be a creature that they have to defeat. And if they defeat it, basically they clear out the way. So here's what I'm picturing. You step through this mirror and you enter a hall of mirrors, basically. A hall of mirrors. And each of them you can step through and go into one of the other places. But that place has been inhabited by some violent creature. So it stops you until you're powerful enough to defeat it. And then once you do, now you have access to a whole bunch of locations. But you got to activate, it's again, fast travel. It's Legend of Zelda. It's anything. You got to activate the system first. So in order to use the mirror or whatever it is at the sealed gate, you got to go there and actually touch it. And then it opens up from that end. Same thing with the one in Throne. You got to go there and touch it. And once you do, boom, you can actually step through to Throne from there. So once the players explore a place, once one group, if it's a Westmarches, right? Once one group activates it, then any group can use it. And so you can quickly travel around the map. But in order to do that, you got to actually first go out and do it. Anyway, I like that. And it makes sense with a world this big. You don't want, if the players want to go to the mega dungeon at the end, you don't want them to have to travel every single time across the whole map, right? You don't want them to have to every single time. Yeah, exactly, Ulfhammer. That's what I'm going to do. And further, honestly, I'm not going to spell everything out because some of this is just going to be up to, if I'm going to be producing this for other people. If people want to change it or if they want to adapt it or they want to solve the mystery for themselves one way or the other, they can. So I might just say, like, who knows what he is? He doesn't know what he is. And if GMs are like, I don't like that, I want to make him know that, then they'll do that. Yeah, Pity Rat, exactly. So they'll be able to find ways of using it. Maybe a spirit or a guardian or a guide, some guy in some NPC in somewhere, maybe a text in a scroll that they can find. Maybe there are multiple ways of finding out. Trial and error, you know. Um, Maybe that'll work. If you guys have ever seen the Next Generation, Star Trek The Next Generation episode, there's one episode where Data, I think it's Data and Picard are trapped in an alien ruin, and they have this archway that keeps on cycling through different places, and one of them it shows is the Enterprise bridge, and they realize that if they step through, they can go through into the Enterprise bridge. So it might be something like that, right? They find one of these mirrors in, I don't know, in Throne, and they see it cycling through these places, and one of them looks like, hey, that's Ordeal. We recognize that. And they can step right back through. That's awesome, Crow. I love that. That's super fun. Okay. So I'll do that. That's good enough for the Cave of the Prayer Thief and the Drowned Sanctum. Let's do Flint Tower. I think that'll do it for today. I'm just going to do these three. Maybe I'll do Flint Tower and the Scales, Seat of Judgment. That's what I'll do. So let's do Flint here. Flint. And then E22. Yeah, you're right, Violet. That's also a throwback. Yeah, you're right. City on the Edge of Forever. Totally forgot about that. Of course, that's with time, too, not just space. Actually, it's either, right? I think it's anywhere. The City on the Edge of Forever, I think the Guardian lets you go in the City of the Edge of Forever. I think it lets you go anywhere. Anywhere and anywhen. Anywhen and anywhere. Okay. Except in Star Trek, they actually kept on talking about cause and effect. You step through there, you actually can change the future. I was about to compare it to Doctor Who, but in Doctor Who, it's already all happened, but you can change the future, but you can't change the future. I don't know. I was thinking of the wibbly wobbly, timey wimey stuff. All right, so E22, Flint Tower. Okay, here we go. Boom. Bold. That was 18. Bold. Boom. Yeah, wibbly wobbly, timey wimey stuff. Honestly, I think that, well, other than the Chris Eccleston season, I watched that whole season. I think that's the only episode of Doctor Who, other than the Chris Eccleston season, that I've seen, is the time one with the gargoyles. Don't blink. Or blink. I think it's called Blink. It's a good one. It's a good episode. It's creepy. All right, Flint Tower. What the heck is Flint Tower? I have to admit, guys, this is one, I had a lot of ideas about some of these other places. I had no idea about this. Why is it called Flint Tower? When everything else is like Ordeal, the Shriek, the Scales, why is this forest called Flint? Is it like a flint heart? Hey, Space Biff. Oh, awesome. Welcome, and glad you enjoyed the channel. Glad you found it and are enjoying it. That's great. I'm always happy when people find it and they enjoy it there. Yeah, hopefully not, Violent. Flint, Michigan. Yeah, oof, that was a disaster. Quite literally. Flint. Maybe it was like Flint Heart originally, right? Yeah, maybe Flint. Oh, maybe that's it. Maybe the tree bark shimmers. I was thinking it was more a story, like a guy who set his heart as flint, right, and died there. One of the cold followers of the princess or something like that. It could relate to that. It doesn't need to be explained, I suppose. Players don't need to know why it's called Flint. If it's funny how very few of the names that we actually live around, we know why they're called what they're called, right? I always think it's funny, the city of Cincinnati. It's named after George Washington. You think, how is Cincinnati named after George Washington? Well, it's because he was called the American Cincinnatus. And Cincinnatus was the great hero of the Roman Republic who gave up his power as dictator twice instead of seizing power. So George Washington was called the American Cincinnatus, and the city of Cincinnati was named after that. It's just funny how people don't know why it's called there. So it could just be that. You don't know why Flint is called Flint. Now, space has a suggestion. It's this trigger of something. The shard of your heart, here's a representation of who you used to be before the pilgrimage. Yeah, you flint out. Yeah, you cause little flints, little splints of yourself. Flint was a person gone bad. Could have been. Flint's tower could have some evidence of that. Maybe Flint was a servant who started to charge pilgrims. And his tower was blasted by divine light for his sins. Kind of like Simony, right? If you look at the book, The Acts of the Apostles, Simon the magician tries to buy St. Peter's power, and he's struck dead for the sin of simony, which is now what the church calls that, right? Which is when you try to use your divine power for material gain. Simony. So it could be like that. This was a dude who was supposed to guard the road, and instead he was charging pilgrims and piling up possessions for himself, and so he was blasted from the inside. Maybe the tower is charred from the inside. It's exploded out. Now that's one story. Maybe another story is that, I don't know. Yeah, maybe the people say, oh, you leave a part of yourself there. But I like the idea here. I'm going to do this. Tower is charred and blasted. Oops, charred and blasted from the inside out. Boom. Yeah. There's a dungeon below. Some say the name is comes. Oh, excuse me. Whoa, I didn't mean to sneeze on you guys. I apologize for that. Hopefully, you guys don't get that virus. Right? That's how computer viruses start, right? When someone sneezes into a microphone. I'm pretty sure, right? That's where viruses come from. No, I'm just kidding. All right, some say the name comes from a man who who began to extort pilgrims on the road and was blasted for his flint heart. Yeah, Ulfhammer. Some say it is an ancient ruin from a kingdom even before that of the Holy Princess. A kingdom transliterated. Is that how you? Is that the word I'm looking for? Transliterated as Flint, though the real name is long lost. Yeah, Gami, maybe there's a Stone Age ruin here. Soul Spirit, I like that. Flint's death was the spark of a revolution. This was the seat of a revolution against the holy city. The flint that struck the blaze. The blaze. Yeah. I like these. Church was self-destroyed it when they realized a lot of stuff, truth was left there, unblemished soul stuff. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, exactly, Violet. I agree. One of my favorite things. Incomplete and unreliable information that causes uncertainty, confusion in the players' minds. One of my favorite things. Yeah, I agree. It's so great. My favorite thing ever is when players start to disagree about the lore of your world with each other. Like, no, dude, that can't be the case because look at this other NPC who said this thing once. No. It has to be because this other guy did that and we found that relic, and like that's so fun. I love that. Love that. One time, one of my favorite memories of playing was when I had a group of about, it was a group of 4 players, who the whole session, it was like a 4-hour session. 3.5 hours of it was them arguing about whether they could trust someone. I'm not kidding. It was quite literally 3.5 hours of them arguing about whether they could trust a certain NPC. And it wasn't just, no, I think we should. No, we shouldn't. They were giving reasons and evidence, and they were going back through their history and like, no, but look at what he said here. And no, but look, he treated that guy this way, and we know what that guy's like. It's so cool. They were getting heated, and I was just sitting there not saying a word for like 3.5 hours. Occasionally, I would contribute like a clarification. They'd be like, wait, did he say this? And I'd be like, no, he said that. That was it. But they just talked for 3.5 hours. So much fun. Okay, Flint Tower. So that's regardless of its origin, some let's see, why is it a dungeon? Why is it an adventure site? See you, William. Thanks for hanging out, man. Glad you make it. Regardless of its origin, it is a foreboding place with a network of rooms still intact beneath the earth. Okay, so it's a dungeon. The tower itself is gone on the surface, but there are some dungeon levels below. Maybe there's like half of a tower level above, still intact. Like you can go up to the second floor if you can climb up. Actually, though the upper floors are barely intact, there is X treasure still to be found on the burnt out stairless third floor. Good luck getting up there. Boom. There we go. So there's something up there, 30 feet up in the air, over ground of broken stone. If you fall, you're probably going to die as a low-level character, but you can fly later on. You can just fly out up there. But early on, it's like, oh yeah, are we even going to look up there? But if we do, hey, what do you find? A key or like a, X treasure, something good up there. Okay, I'll come back to that. But what's here? What lives here to this day? Flint Tower. Spirits. You could always do spirits. You could always do. Yeah, it's immersion. Love it. Yeah, Elfhammer. What is here? I mean, something could have burrowed in, or bandits could have settled here. Actual dudes who have decided to use the tower as a way of raiding pilgrims. Actually, that could simply be it. Yeah, why shouldn't bandits move in? Yeah, Wally, that's actually a great point. Bandits preying on pilgrims have indeed settled here. You got to have some bandits early on, right? Nothing wrong with a little human antagonists, or mortal antagonists. We have a really strange, creepy, weird fight down in the Drowned Sanctum. Got a weird, creepy thing going on in the Cave of the Prayer Thief. We're gonna have something pretty weird going on in the Seat of Judgment. Let's have something a little more normal. Flint Tower, just deal with some bandits. Yeah. And they're actually been raiding Feroa and her camp up here. They've been harassing the workers who have been going back and forth. So maybe the initial is from Feroa, who's like, hey, someone go and stop these bandits. And then someone else later on, the next quest in the quest line, right? Once you deal with them, maybe like a level or two later, you're adding a board there. Let's see. Let's see, Wally, I'm not... Oh, yeah, why shouldn't... Oh, I mean, generally, too. Oh, I see what you mean. Gotcha. It wasn't just a rhetorical question. Maybe the lowest still unclaimed something there. Maybe bandits would even accept help with that. Yeah, actually, that's true. Maybe the lowest level of the place is still settled. But the lowest level of the dungeon is off limits, even to them, because of the thing that dwells there. Yeah. That's pretty good. That's fine. Adds a little bit of interest. Flint Tower. Nice thing for the players to interact with. Okay, so what that means is that there are going to be three initial quest, quote-unquote quest zones. 4, I guess, of the Seat of Judgment. Players can initially hear about random stuff, and you can come up with whatever you want. Monster lairs to go kill. That's easy enough to do. And I might even do like a little like D10 combination table of like monster, reward, and location. Like, hey, 150 gold pieces to kill the Drowner Queen out in the Shriek. You know, like something like that. So you can always come up with quests like that. Those are easy enough to do. Initial hooks for Westmarches. You can also do Flint Tower, Cave of the Prayer Thief, and the Shriek. The Drowned Sanctum, I should say. And then, of course, there's the Seat of Judgment and Scale Tower. Yeah, got me. Neanderthals. Can't go wrong with Neanderthals. So I think these locations, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 locations initially is a good initial set. Maybe have a hook that leads to each. And then have hooks that go further off into the world that are maybe like for level 2 or 3. Because I think the idea here is that these locations are going to be balanced roughly at first level, low level. Drowned Sanctum, they're not going to be balanced in the proper way. And there are going to be difficulty spikes. But these are all roughly for level 1, 2. Herd of wild politicians, BP. Oh, gotta go run, man. Can't handle that. Only thing worse is a gaggle of lawyers, right? That's the only thing you gotta run from with more terror and more fear. Yeah. Okay. So let's see what else we're gonna be doing here. I might have to call it pretty soon here. I haven't had lunch. I should go get lunch. But let's finish off Seat of Judgment at least. I said I was going to do that. Let's do that. The seat. This is in the scales. And it's so called. I know the scales are so called because, as you can see, there are 2 mountains, one on either side. And the way that they are shaped, it's natural, but that the way that they are shaped gives the impression of balancing scales. They're not, but just something about the way that they're shaped. It's not like it's been worked to look like that. But it's sort of a coincidence that maybe was taken advantage of. It looks something like that. That's why this, and it's also where they set up the judgment scales, the Seat of Judgment. But it's kind of what it gives the impression of looking like. So put that there. All right. We have the Seat of Judgment, or the Judgment Seat. Seat of Judgment. That is G25. Yeah, good old Teapot Dome. Exactly, Wally. All right. Boom. Okay. Okay, here. What do we have? We have the scales. Where pilgrims would face their final judgment before they were allowed to enter the holy city. Those who were found prepared would pass to the white road up here. Those who needed further purification were sent along the Pilgrim's Way into the Gilded Waste. Well, now the Gilded Waste. Into what is now called the Gilded Waste. While finally, those who were deemed those who were. What was the word you used earlier, Crow? I forget. Crow said something like, it was a good word for it. Not undermining, but subversive, I think is the word you used. Who were deemed subversive and dangerous were sent to the halls of penance, never to return. Not that anyone knows that, right? Of course, you're sent to the halls of penance. You just think it's a place of like, oh, final purification. You don't know it's a prison. But indeed, that's where you were sent. Okay. Now, who is the judge? Judge. I was thinking something kind of cool, like you could do a sphinx. Androsphinx? Is that the old man sphinx? I think that's kind of cool. I haven't ever put a sphinx in any of my games, I have to admit. I've never done it. So having the judge be an old sphinx who's been corrupted, maybe he's blinded. A blinded sphinx. A blinded sphinx. Named Oedipus. No, a blinded sphinx who sees the souls of those who come before him. I don't know, something like that. Androsphinx? Is that what they call them? Now, of course, he's been driven mad and corrupted, like everything else here. Now feasts on the... I could do something like the lion from the Lion of Tel Arn. He's not actually a sphinx. The blinded lion now feasts on those who come before him. Yeah, feasts on those who come before him. Yeah, something like that. I don't know. I think that's kind of cool. I think it could be that. Yeah, so Violet, you maybe weren't here yet. The idea here is going all the way back to the beginning. The idea here is that there was this entity, this extraplanar, quote unquote, divinity, this person who lived and ruled here for a long, long time. Tradition calls her the princess. They call her the daughter of a god. They call her the goddess, a godling, whatever you want to call it, a demigod. This very powerful entity, extraplanar. The source of magic, or at least a source of magic. Her followers, 9 in particular, betrayed her, forced her into this prison slumber thing, and bound her with these sort of golden chains. And the idea here is that the golden chains bind her are powered and how would you put it? This whole religion that they've concocted is basically all of those prayers are part of the magic that keeps her locked in her prison. But she's way more powerful than any one of them and had ruled the land in such a way that she is basically the land itself now. And so it has corrupted everything. Not that it was already pretty good. It wasn't good to begin with. All of these people were pretty bad. They turned on her and betrayed her. But her presence, even her sleeping, her dreams has driven mad basically everything over the eons since, the millennia since they've imprisoned her. And slowly but surely, all of the Archons, those who betrayed her, either died, turned on each other, went mad, shriveled away, became, some version of themselves. And the whole religion civilization that they built here crumbled with them. And so that's what players are coming into, is sort of the husk of the Holy Kingdom, right? What was once this place. But that presence, that religion and all that still calls pilgrims. So people are still coming. A trickle now compared to the, thousands who came before at one time. But there are still people coming. And so there are still NPCs and factions and groups of people who are arriving here, but they quickly are devoured or destroyed by this haunted land. It's kind of the idea. And what I like about that is that there's a source of evil, a source of corruption, a source of madness, a source of chaos, but not active. She's asleep. And she's still sleeping, and maybe she'll still sleep for 1,000 years. Who knows? There's no immediate danger of her waking up and ruining the world. You could change that if you want in your game, but that's how I'm going to be writing it. Of course, I'm going to be releasing this. Yeah, Wally, I think they are. So there's a few of the Archons that I have in mind. I think there are, the ones that I had on here there's going to be one in Throne, still mad and active, still trying to maintain the religion, but totally in a feudal way. So like whatever it is, it's like, a dude in a tower ordering zombies around, not that exactly, but basically that. So there's a dude still one of the Archons is still here. There's an Archon out in the Palace of Flowers. There's an Archon down in the Palace of the Overseer. There's an Archon in the Temple of the Wrapped One. And there's an Archon up in the Palace of Steel. There's 5. Of the 9, there are 5 that I know are in the world, and all of them are either mad or, echoes, shriveled husks of their former self. But those are the 5 that are there, to one degree or another. That means there are 4 that are missing. And I had ideas about where the other 4 might be. One is in the cell, Sinner's Isle. So one of the Archons, the first sinner, quote unquote, or the first heretic, whatever you want to say, the apostate, one of them changed his mind and was like, we made a mistake. We need to wake her up. And the other 8 imprisoned him in Sinner's Isle. So he's locked away there. Maybe he's mad. Maybe he's sane. Whatever he is. Maybe he's dead. But that's his tomb prison. Another one. They put them on islands. They like that. So that's his place. There might be one in the Palace of the Princess guarding it. So that's another. maybe they just find his body, or maybe one of the undead are there. So that's the mega dungeon that I'm going to put at the end. I'm going to put a mega dungeon in this setting because I'm insane. So the Palace of the Princess is going to be like 120 rooms. That's what my plan is right now. I had kind of the general form of it mapped out, and it's about 120 rooms, something like that. We'll see if I can actually do that, but that's the idea. So maybe there's an Archon there in the Palace of the Princess. Maybe there's one out here in the Halls of Penance, right? So maybe there's one who is ruling over this place. I don't know necessarily. I would imagine the Halls of Penance fall under the dominion of the Temple of the Wrapped One, this guy. And I think he used the prisoners in his experiments on life and death. I think that's what's going on. So this is all kind of undead and creepy in my mind. But there are two to play with. I don't know. Does that make sense, Wally? There are two to play with. So I was thinking one of them could be the Grandmother Widow. She's hanging out. She's one of the Archons, was one of the Archons, and she's just like, hey, she's more of an NPC than a villain. And they can talk to her. Maybe she has quests you can give them. Maybe there's something they can do. Maybe there's an adventure site there, but she's not necessarily an antagonist. She's just kind of there. So she could be one of them. The Ooze Father could be one of them, but I don't think so. I think he's probably some servant of the Wrapped One who kind of started his own thing over here. At any rate, there are two left to play with as I see fit. Yeah. Maybe they're just totally gone, right? If I want, maybe over the ages, the two were destroyed. And there's just maybe there's evidence of them, and you can find their names or something, and one of their artifacts, just you can use his sword or something like that, but he's gone. That'd be kind of cool. And then the others are ones you can meet. In one form or another. And I do think that they're going to be on... it's the Isle of the Archon. That's the tomb. The Ninefold Tomb, Jin, that's where they were all going to be buried. The idea here, and I think, so here's my speculation, is that they were planning on being buried together for some reason. There was sort of a mutual destruction pact or something like that. I don't know. I'm sure there is, Ulfhammer. I'm sure there is. So there's somebody who wants to set her free, and I would imagine all you have to do is just break some sort of seal, maybe kill the last Archons. If you kill all the ones that are still alive, she'll wake up, or at least the doors to her chamber will be opened, and you can go in and wake her up if you want. So maybe that's the case. Yeah. I don't think it's going to be an active plot. Like I said, I don't want there to be a timer for a Westmarches or for a Sandbox. So the players, it's again environmental storytelling. So if the players do end up wanting to face the fragment of the goddess's memory that's still present, maybe they have to kill all the other Archons and then get there. But that would be a kind of a final boss end of campaign sort of thing. And that's not necessarily something that I think I'm going to do. But I could see that anyone could do that. You can make that. Yeah, exactly. The choice is yours. Let's see, Wally. Would it make sense that one of the Archons is now a group or sect? Oh, I see. So it's kind of broken into. It's kind of broken into. I don't know, like a. How would you put it? Like a Steward of Gondor situation, where there's no king. That the Archon of some particular Archon passed on his title or something like that. Yeah, something like that. I don't know. Baptists, something like that, Crow. To set her free, you have to bury the Archons on the island. Yeah, something like that. I could imagine that. That's the thing. So right now, it's all pretty vague, as you guys can tell. I have this idea, and I think it's a good idea. But the Archons, the Archons need to be... I mean, they basically are already dealt with. They've been given their comeuppance for their betrayal. They've either gone mad or have been destroyed. Those whom the gods make mad. Those whom the gods destroy, they first drive mad. I think that would work. Okay. So, going all the way back then to Violet's question. The judge has been driven mad by this, which means the judge had to be in on the secret. The judge had to be in on the deception. So it was a powerful servant of one of the Archons who was in on the whole plot, because there are a handful of people who know this is a fake religion. right? They know the truth that actually this goddess, this entity, is being basically drained. The power is being siphoned. It's like a limitless, or was seemingly limitless, supply of magic and of power. And that's why this world is so weird, and it's why there's so many crazy creatures here, and why you can have like so many different biomes so close together, right? Because each of these archons can blend their own particular part of their domain to their own vibe, their own style. They can make the world to be what they liked. Yeah. So maybe you have to take them to the Ninefold Tomb. If you want to open up the final door, you have the Ninefold Tomb, bury them all there. Okay. Something like that. Okay, so the judge is a blind Androphinx. Now, one thing I need to do is actually come up with the 9 archons. Let me do that. Do I want to do that today? How long have I been going? 2 hours. I think actually I'm going to call that there. Those are good locations. I do work a lot slower on stream, but I think it's way more fun for me to work on stream. I get to talk to you guys and hang out. Way more fun. I'll try to do another one of these. Let's see, next Sunday? Yeah, I think I can manage one next Sunday too. So if anybody wants to hang out again next Sunday and do more of this, I'll probably have more of the world developed by then because I'm on break now and I can just spend all week working on this. I don't even know if you guys are busy. I might just do one tomorrow, a live stream tomorrow at some point in the afternoon. That'd be kind of fun. And just do more prep. I'll probably do more prep later tonight as well. Prep is the wrong word. I'm not prepping anything. I'm just writing, putting stuff together. Anyway, thanks for hanging out, everybody. I'm going to go get some lunch. It's been super cool. I think this has been helpful to me. I like some of these ideas quite a lot. Actually, I like all of these ideas quite a lot. Prayer Thief is pretty cool. Drowned Sanctum's pretty cool. I really like the Confessor. He's creepy, but it's a cool villain. Cool monster. Flint is actually... So I thought Flint was going to be boring, but those ideas are awesome. Seat of Revolution, Seat of an Ancient City. I was like, yeah, it's just going to be a bandit tower or something like that. But that looks really cool. All right. Yeah, brunch. Got to go have some brunch, Crow. All right, peace, everybody. Hope you all have a great Sunday. And in case I don't get to talk to y'all before Christmas, hope you all have a Merry Christmas if you celebrate. And if not, I hope you have a Merry holiday anyway. Although, you know, it's funny. Holiday, the word holiday comes from the word holy day. So, anyway, hope you have a great Christmas season. Yeah, Violet, that's true. That's true. Often just means small toys and games. See you all around. Peace.